Good afternoon, my friends. Michael C. here. Welcome to 12-Step Spirituality with myself and Adam G. This is session 5, Living in the Pause, Healing Shame. I'm going to go and get my friend Adam, and we are going to begin the conversation. So bear with me just one moment. There he is. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Michael.
How are you, my friend?
I'm really good today, thanks.
Okay. We are ready to go. The world is here. The classroom is opened up. Living in the pause.
Yeah.
Healing shame. Class number 5. So it's been quite the journey. Well, last week when we were chatting, you, towards the end, suggested that there might be just not a newer attitude, but an attitude that would be more useful to us in kind of navigating us through the inventory steps. So I thought it would be great for you to get us going and starting with that.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about, well, where did my old attitude come from? And I think a little bit of that was my makeup. Part of it was maybe the Catholic model that I grew up with, which was you sin, you confess, you do penance, you clean yourself up, and then you can meet God at Easter or anytime, right? So that was the order. And last week I suggested that it's not about cleaning up ourselves to be worthy enough for God, traveling this great distance to return to God. No, we were never separate in the first place. So we're just returning. We're just turning our attention back to the God of understanding. And that process starts, I suggested, when we're humble enough to reveal our whole selves to God, to ourselves and another human being. So there's our step 5. So I said last week, so before we return to God, we must return to ourselves. Not punish, not reprimand, not scold. Just return to ourselves by looking honestly at our whole selves. And what if we could do that without shame or recrimination, but with gentleness and self-compassion? Wouldn't that make the 4th step easier to swallow?
And that last part is that hits me in the soul. I just resonate big time that I could actually look at myself in this very close view called the 4th and 5th step. I'd never had subjected myself to something that was that transparent without shame. That was shame was invisible to me. I couldn't see it. I've over the years have called it self-hate, self-contempt. And not only did you lay that out, but then said, oh, and by the way, with compassion, self-compassion, gentleness. Another way of saying this is, Michael, make sure you bring God with you into this and embrace God, because God is love. And it took me a little while to wrap my arms around that. I had to come to a few meetings before somebody in the room said, it sounds like your first character defect is self-hate. So we had a few sessions on what I could do. And in retrospect, they were pointing to the same thing you're pointing to, Adam, and that is gentleness, compassion, love, forgiveness, and then stepping into the step, it's a whole different experience. And I think that's why a lot of us, it scares us. We're afraid of what we're going to do to us when we look. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so I'm curious, what did that person say? What do you got to do to, you got to confront this self-hatred. You have to confront the shame. What was the
Right.
prescription?
Well, that's really when I was introduced first to the 3 A's, and it's alive and well in some 12-step communities, and this one it was awareness, and it was acceptance, and it was action, and awareness of so what is shame, and how is it alive and well in me? And that the idea that, if I could, somebody said to me, if you can see it, you won't have to be it. And at first I thought they were being poetic, but over the years I know what they're saying. When I'm granted awareness, what I can see, I can stop. What I can't see stops me. Or I should say, what I can see can be stopped. What I can't see is going to stop me. And in retrospect, I was stopped and derailed all of my life until I woke up to that first day awareness.
As you were talking just now, Michael, I was struck that this awareness piece is the cornerstone of the whole thing. I sure didn't have awareness when I was in my cups. And to be honest, I've spent a significant part of my sober days keeping myself distracted and oblivious to this kind of self-awareness. As Rohr says about step 5, you cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. And what you do not consciously acknowledge will remain in control of you from within, festering and destroying you and those around you. And that's been that awareness is where we start to turn, right?
Yeah. To take it a step further, we could talk all day long just around the awareness piece. And, the God of my understanding has been very kind to me. He knows that, okay, to what degree are you ready to be awakened now? Because if I wake up too fast, I call it high velocity defect recognition. And I can't breathe. So God's been gentle in that case. But, at the beginning of moving on in the second A of acceptance. And I remember somebody that is really, I stay very close to a lot more time than I do, says something like that, I can't change, what I can't accept. So, now that I'm aware of this in me, I need to accept what I'm aware of. And really, going back to awareness, I can't accept what I can't see. So awareness really is that prerequisite. And to me, awareness isn't either or. There's degrees that I know that I'm seeing it when I can say it to you. And then it's a matter of acceptance. And the acceptance to me is in twofold. It's sometimes I would refer to acceptance as awareness without judgment. And to really be careful that I don't fall into awfulizing, terribilizing, horribilizing, and creating kind of a story around it. That what has happened to me with regard to the genesis of any shame on me is it's not bad, nor is it good. It is what it is. And to me, acceptance is awareness without judgment. But then the biggie, in that accepting that this is happening is not a get out of jail free card. Now that I'm awake, I'm going to accept the responsibility for entering into a process. In this case, it's the 12 steps, centering prayer, contemplative, to have that shame healed in me. I've heard it say that, recovery is, finding God is more of a process of subtraction in addition to, continue to surrender, because under that shame is the awareness of the divine presence within me. And I've been on that quest now for a little over a couple of decades, and I keep asking people like you and people with a lot of time, like, okay, so when are we going to be done with that? No, we're going to be in this conversation for a while. It's just, what do you call it? One layer at a time or whatever. But I'll tell you what, it's been extraordinary.
Yeah, as we were getting ready and thinking about step 5, we came across this Rohr quote, and this is how Rohr talks about what we're selling today. He says, I'm going to read it verbatim. God does not love us if we change. God loves us so that we can change. And only love affects true inner transformation, not duress, not guilt, not shunning, not social pressure, not shame. And so we read that, and it aligns with what you were just talking about. But for me, this poses another quandary, and I wanted to pose it to you today, Michael. So what you and I are pointing towards is this new way of navigating the inventory steps. Instead of flogging ourselves with the sins of the past, we're suggesting that a person might go through steps 4 and 5 with a mindset of self-forgiveness, self-compassion, self-caring. So here's my question. How do I bring that attitude if I haven't dealt with the shame yet? Aren't we getting the cart before the horse? How can I bring those qualities to this inventory if part of the inventory is clearing out the shame? You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
How can I bring that to this process if I haven't got it yet?
Right, right. A very profound question, and all I bring to the table is my experience with regard to that question. So for sure it's not the 11th commandment, but what has helped me is once I accepted that it was my responsibility through a lot of different actions to begin having the shame healed so that I could commence with the rest of the steps. It's okay, so what are those actions? Well, anytime I'm in a 12-step meeting, somebody is pointing to the poster on the wall, the 12 steps, or whatever step we're on. And if I'm confused about this very simple but profound question, there's somebody to ask. Can you help me? You're one of my helpers, a fellow peer, a spiritual advisor, attending a centering prayer meeting. There's always someone around to invoke one more action, and that's as close as I can come to what you're inquiring about.
The solution is hiding in plain sight, right? This is why the 5th step is designed to be done with another person, hopefully a trusted person, a confidant, a sponsor, because they model love and acceptance during the process so that we can get support for moving away from the idea of inventory as retribution for failures towards the idea of inventory as restoration of self-compassion. So I'm thinking right now about the kindness and generosity, outpouring of genuine care that surrounded me the first time I walked into the rooms of AA. It was love. They didn't know me, and that love came at me. It took me completely by surprise. I was disoriented and disarmed.
Yes.
And as Rohr said, this is the way that God seduces us all into the economy of grace, by loving us in spite of ourselves, in the very places where we cannot or will not dare love ourselves. So my final point, centering prayer takes that warm and welcoming embrace that we receive at our first meeting and meetings thereafter, that unearned grace, and reminds us that if we sit in the chair, get quiet, it's right there, even if only a glimpse, as close as breathing, as close as thinking, as close as consciousness itself. I came to centering prayer well after my first few 5th steps. But going through inventory today, like we were talking about yesterday, is a whole other thing now. I have less shame, so I have less resistance and dread. And honestly, the boats don't pile up on the river so much.
Yeah. I don't know why. You were talking, and it provoked a memory of me coming back the last time and staying. I came once, stayed a while, went out, and was out a very long while before the ism brought me back. And you talk about shame. I was in the same room that I was in, 20 years prior to, and I had all I could say to how in my own way I said, I'm so ashamed. I had my shot. I left it, I left 20. I left 25 when I was 25. I'm back at 45, and somebody in the room, there's always the one-liners. Welcome back. We don't shoot our young, right? And
Yeah.
because I thought when I said what I said, somebody was going to go, "Are you crazy? Like you were here for 5, you went back out and came back, and welcome back. We don't shoot our young." And then somebody in the room says, "This is what's wonderful about 12 steps is we don't have to answer the question why. Everybody knows, right? It's like I parked my car in the living room last night. Nobody's going, well, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're with your homies now.
Right.
Get in the center of the herd, keep your head down,
Yeah.
and stay close. One last thing I'll say, and that is, I read something this morning, and it was, my higher power was speaking. I have never seen a person grow or change in a constructive direction when motivated by shame. All my life I had been driven by it. I'm going to do everything I can to prove to myself that I'm not as worthless as myself continues to tell me I am. And no matter what I went out to do, when I come back at the end of the day, it was almost like, see, I'm good. And, only to have the voice say, well, you know what? Tomorrow's another day. And oh, by the way, you raised the bar today. So you got a higher bar to jump tomorrow. At any rate.
Right. The accolades would come in. And as they were coming in and going into my ear, my heart was already saying, no, no, no. So no amount of over work, no amount of over performance, none of it could really pierce it. And yet I go back to that well. I feel like if we can be gentler with ourselves in these inventory steps, we can really get in line for what's about to come in 6 and 7, which is where the healing starts to happen. And that I am so excited for those. But I'm glad we took this time with 4 and 5 because we want to have this new way of thinking about it so that we're really open to this healing in 6 and 7.
Yeah, I just had this gigantic OMG, and that was the healing of shame is the big why to take the journey in the steps, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that we do that all in the name of getting our shame healed. And I remember my first centering prayer meeting, somebody in the room saying something like, we heal our shame by taking actions that amend those wrongs that we're guilty of making. And at first, again, I thought, okay, one more poetic play on words, because I couldn't see the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is now, I see it as it's just a function of my conscience. Michael, there's something that you need to get handled, where shame doesn't say that. Shame says you're worthless, you're whatever, fill in the blank. So at any rate, what an extraordinary conversation we're having today, my friend.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Should we come back again next week and talk some more?
I would love to come back next week and talk some more. I have no idea what the community is getting out of this, but the gift with purchase for me is, showing up with you and having a conversation before the conversation, then it's the conversation. Something's happening to me. People in my life are saying, Michael, keep working with Adam. You're easier to be around.
Ditto. Ditto. All right.
All right, my friend. Stay well. Love ya, and we'll see you next.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.